It is the evening of March 17th, 1960. The air in the sculpture garden of the Museum of Modern Art is biting and cold, yet the atmosphere is electric with an anticipation usually reserved for the unveiling of a new Picasso or a gala dinner. But the black tie crowd has not gathered to sip champagne and admire the static grace of bronze or marble. They are standing before something that defies categorization, a 23-foot-long, 27-foot-high monstrosity painted in a ghostly, uniform white. It looks less like a sculpture and more like the fever dream of an industrialist, a chaotic assemblage of bicycle wheels, a child's go-kart, a rusted bathtub, a piano, and an andressograph machine, all wired together in a precarious mechanical nervous system. This is jeantinguely's Homage to New York, and it is standing quietly in the darkness, waiting for the signal to die. The machine's stillness is deceptive. It was not built to stand, it was built to act, and its final act is one of spectacular self-immolation. As the performance begins, the sculpture shudders into life, or perhaps more accurately, into a violent death throe. Gears grind against gears, pulleys shriek, and the sheer physical mass of the object begins to vibrate. It is an assault on the senses. A player piano integrated into the heart of the beast begins to strike discordant notes, a mechanical dirge that is immediately drowned out by the clanking of metal and the whirring of motors. This is not the polite silence of the gallery, it is the roar of the city itself, condensed into a single, suicidal apparatus. Watch closely as the chaos unfolds. The machine is designed to be a total work of art in the Wagnerian sense, but one that embraces absurdity rather than myth. A weather balloon attached to the structure like a grotesque lung begins to inflate. It grows larger and larger, straining against the cold air, until it bursts with a sharp report that echoes off the museum walls, startling the onlookers. Smoke begins to billow from the machine's bowels, yellow, acrid smoke that smells of burning rubber and chemical failure. It is intended to obscure the structure, turning the white framework into a phantom, a skeleton dancing in the fog. But the machine is not just performing, it is struggling. The andressograph machine, which was supposed to distribute poetic manifestos to the crowd, malfunctions, spitting paper aimlessly or jamming entirely. A bottle crashes to the ground. A radio blares unintelligible static. The chaos is mesmerizing because it feels dangerous. This is not a controlled kinetic sculpture where balls roll down predictable tracks. This is an anarchy of physics. The climax arrives when the piano catches fire. This was the plan, a small fire to signal the end, but the flames, fed by the oxygen and the flammable materials scavenged from the dumps of New Jersey, lick hungrily at the wooden struts. The suicide is becoming too literal, too successful. The heat intensifies, the smoke thickens, and for a moment the distinction between art and catastrophe vanishes completely. The audience watches, paralyzed by the spectacle of a machine murdering itself, until a fireman, misinterpreting the performance as a genuine emergency, steps forward with an axe and a hose to save the dying beast, unknowingly playing the final, unscripted role in Tinguely's tragedy. To truly understand the violence of that night in the garden, we must rewind to the scavengers who built the victim. Homage to New York was not crafted in the pristine studio with imported clay or forged steel. It was birthed in the refuse heaps of New Jersey. Jeantinguely, a Swiss artist obsessed with movement, partnered with Billy Kluver, a brilliant engineer from Bell Labs, who saw the poetic potential in technology's failures. Together, along with the American artist Robert Rauschenberg, they embarked on a kind of modern-day archaeology, raiding the dumps for the detritus of American consumerism. They pulled rusted bicycle wheels from the mud, salvaged broken motors, and dragged home the discarded carcasses of household appliances. This methodology was radical. By constructing a masterpiece out of trash, Tinguely was engaging in a direct assault on the materialism of the art world. Yet notice the specific aesthetic choice he made once the pile was assembled. He painted everything white. This was a stroke of genius. In the context of art history, white is the color of purity, of classicism, of the classic statues of Greece and Rome that fill the halls of the world's great museums. By coating his heap of junk in this unifying layer of white, Tinguely created a visual paradox. He gave the garbage the superficial appearance of high art. It looked, for a fleeting moment, like a ghost of a machine, a spectral cathedral rising from the scrapyard. The white paint served another purpose. It made the eventual destruction more visceral. When the machine began to burn and smoke, the soot stained the pristine white surfaces, scarring the marble with the undeniable grit of reality. It was a visual metaphor for the decay of civilization, a pristine facade crumbling to reveal the rot underneath. Tinguely called it a cathedral of scrap, a phrase that carries a heavy irony. Cathedrals are built to last for millennia, to house the eternal spirit. Tinguely's cathedral was built to last for 27 minutes. We must also consider the contribution of Robert Rauschenberg, who added a money thrower to the machine, a device designed to fling silver dollars into the crowd. It was a Dadaist gesture, literally throwing money away, mocking the commercialization of art even as the art elite watched. The collaboration between artist and engineer here was pivotal. Kluver provided the technical know-how to make the suicide possible, calculating the timing of the fuses and the motors. But the failure of the machine, the fact that it didn't work perfectly, that it jammed and sputtered, was part of the point. A perfectly executing machine is a robot. A stumbling, dying machine is tragedy. Tinguely didn't want a smooth execution. He wanted a messy human death. By placing this transient, dirty, self-destructive object inside the Museum of Modern Art, the very institution dedicated to preserving culture forever, Tinguely was staging a coup. He was declaring that life is defined not by what we keep, but by what we lose. The museum is a mausoleum for dead objects. Homage to New York was alive precisely because it was dying. Jeantinguely once famously declared, "I wanted something stronger, like a pyramid, but the opposite of the pyramids, the opposite of cathedrals, the opposite of all these things that are petrified." This sentence is the key to unlocking the entire performance. The pyramids of Giza were built to defy death, to secure immortality for the pharaohs. They are static, heavy, and eternal. Homage to New York was the anti-pyramid. It was light, kinetic, and ephemeral. Its power lay not in its ability to survive the centuries, but in its ability to vanish. In a world that was becoming increasingly obsessed with accumulation, of wealth, of goods, of nuclear arsenals, Tinguely offered a radical alternative, the beauty of disappearance. We must view this through the lens of 1960. The Cold War was freezing the world into a state of terrified paralysis. The threat of nuclear annihilation hung over every head. Humanity had built a global machine, the military-industrial complex, that was seemingly designed to destroy its creators. Homage to New York was a mirror held up to this anxiety. It was a machine that worked furiously, expended tremendous energy, made a lot of noise, and achieved nothing but its own destruction. It was auto-destructive art, a genre that didn't just depict destruction but enacted it. It forced the audience to confront the fragility of their own technological society. If a machine could commit suicide, what did that say about the civilization that built it? And what of the ending? When the firemen stepped in to extinguish the flames, many in the audience booed. They felt the performance had been interrupted, that the art had been censored by the state. But Tinguely was delighted. He later claimed that the firemen's intervention was a necessary part of the piece. It represented society's inability to accept death. We are programmed to save things, to put out fires, to fix what is broken. The fireman was the antibody of the status quo, attacking the virus of chaos. His attempt to preserve the machine only highlighted the machine's desire to die. It added a layer of comedic tragedy that no script could have written. Today, a fragment of Homage to New York sits in the MoMA collection. It is a small, charred piece of metal, a relic of the event. There is a profound irony in this. The museum, true to its nature, could not let the work completely vanish. They salvaged a corpse and put it on display. Tinguely might have laughed at this final twist. By preserving a piece of the suicide machine, the museum admitted defeat. They could not embrace the void. They had to keep a souvenir. In doing so, they proved Tinguely's point. We are terrified of the temporary. We cling to our wreckage because we cannot bear to let it go. But for 27 minutes in a cold garden in 1960, art was not a thing you could own. It was a fire you could only watch burn.